Most people think pleasure is the path to happiness. He proved it's actually the path to misery. Epicurus, an ancient Greek philosopher who spent his life studying what actually makes people happy, and what he discovered is the complete opposite of what everyone believes. Chasing pleasure doesn't bring peace, it brings anxiety. Wanting more doesn't bring satisfaction, it brings suffering. And the secret to a calm life isn't getting everything you want, it's wanting almost nothing at all. Most people reject this instantly. But 2,000 years later, science is proving he was right. And if you understood what he actually taught, your entire life would change. So let's go back. About 2,300 years ago, ancient Greece, Athens is the center of philosophy. And most philosophers are teaching complicated theories, abstract ideas about reality and virtue and how to live perfectly. And right in the middle of all this intellectual noise is Epicurus, teaching something simple. So simple that people think he must be missing something. He says, the goal of life is to be happy, and happiness comes from pleasure. But not the pleasure you think. People hear this and assume he's saying, live for pleasure, drink, eat, party, indulge, get everything you want. And that's exactly what his critics accused him of. They called him a hedonist, someone who just chases sensory pleasure and calls it philosophy. But they completely misunderstood him, because Epicurus had a very specific definition of pleasure. And it's not what most people think. He said, true pleasure isn't excitement, or thrill, or intense sensation. True pleasure is the absence of pain. Physical pain and mental pain. That's it. When your body doesn't hurt and your mind isn't disturbed, that's pleasure. That's happiness. That's the goal. Most people think that sounds boring. Where's the excitement? Where's the joy? Where's the peak experience? But Epicurus would say that's the problem. You're chasing peaks, and every peak has a valley. Every high has a crash. Every intense pleasure brings intense suffering when it ends. So you spend your life riding this wave, up and down, excited, then disappointed, happy, then miserable, never stable, never calm, always chasing the next high. And you call that living. But Epicurus would say that's not living. That's just suffering with breaks. He taught a different way. Instead of chasing intense pleasures that don't last, focus on removing sources of pain. Physical needs are simple. Food, shelter, safety, health. Get those handled and your body is at peace. Mental needs are similar. Freedom from fear, freedom from anxiety, freedom from endless wanting. Get those handled and your mind is at peace. That's the secret. Not adding more. Removing what causes suffering. And what causes most suffering? Desire. Wanting things you don't have. Chasing things you don't need. Comparing yourself to others. Worrying about the future. All of that creates mental pain. And mental pain destroys peace. So Epicurus said the path to a calm life is simple. Want less, need less, expect less. The fewer desires you have, the fewer disappointments you experience. The less you need, the easier your life becomes. The lower your expectations, the more often reality exceeds them. He lived this way. He had a simple house and a garden. He ate basic food. He lived with friends. No luxury, no excess. No chasing status or wealth or fame. Just simple living, focused on removing pain instead of chasing pleasure. And people thought he was crazy. They said he was wasting his potential, missing out on life, being too cautious, too boring, too safe. But Epicurus was at peace. While everyone else was stressed and anxious and constantly wanting more, he was content. Not because he had everything, but because he wanted almost nothing. and that made him richer than the wealthiest man in Athens. He said, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for." Think about that. Everything you have right now, you once wanted desperately. Your phone, your home, your job, your relationships, whatever it is. At some point, you didn't have it and you wanted it. And getting it made you happy. For a while, but then you got used to it. You stopped noticing it, and you started wanting the next thing. The upgrade, the better version. The thing other people have that you don't. And that's the trap. Your happiness depends on getting what you want. But once you get it, you stop wanting it and start wanting something else. So you're never actually happy. You're just temporarily distracted from wanting. Epicurus saw this pattern everywhere, and he realized that the problem isn't that people don't get what they want. The problem is that getting what they want doesn't fix the wanting. It just shifts to something else. So the solution isn't to get more, it's to want less. To actually appreciate what you already have. To stop the cycle of endless desire. Now, here's where people get Epicurus wrong. They think he's saying, never want anything. Never have goals. Never improve your life. Just accept poverty and call it philosophy. But that's not it. Epicurus said there are 3 types of desires. Natural and necessary ones, like food and shelter. Natural but unnecessary ones, like good food and nice clothes. And unnatural and unnecessary ones, like wealth and fame and luxury. The first type you should satisfy. You need them to survive. The second type you can enjoy occasionally but don't depend on. The third type you should avoid completely. Because they're bottomless. You can never get enough. And chasing them destroys your peace. Most people reverse this. They ignore their basic needs while chasing status and wealth. They sacrifice their health for money, their relationships for career, their peace for achievement. And they wonder why they're miserable. Epicurus would say, you're doing it backwards. Take care of the basics first. Then enjoy simple pleasures. And stop chasing things that will never satisfy you. He also taught something radical about fear. He said most people are terrified of death. And that fear ruins their entire life. They're anxious constantly, trying to avoid death. Trying to achieve something permanent before they die. Trying to matter in some cosmic way. But Epicurus said death is nothing to fear. Because when you're alive, death isn't here. And when death is here, you're not. So you never actually experience death. It's like being afraid of the time before you were born. It makes no sense. This freed him. He didn't waste his life being anxious about something that would never actually happen to him as an experience. He just lived, fully present, not worried about running out of time, not trying to achieve immortality, just being alive while he was alive. Now let's bring this to your life, because you're probably doing exactly what Epicurus warned against. You're chasing pleasures that don't last. Wanting things that won't satisfy you, creating suffering through endless desire. Think about your goals. You want more money. Why? To buy things. To feel secure. To impress people. But Epicurus would ask, will that actually make you calm? Or will it just give you new things to worry about? New ways to compare yourself. New desires for even more. Most people who get rich don't become calm. They become more anxious, because now they have more to protect, more to manage, more ways to fail. They thought money would solve their problems, but it just created different problems. Or think about your possessions. You probably own way more than you need. Closets full of clothes you don't wear, gadgets you don't use, stuff collecting dust, and you keep buying more. Thinking the next thing will finally make you happy. But Epicurus would say, every possession is a burden. It needs space, maintenance, protection, attention. The more you own, the more you're owned. True freedom comes from needing less, not having more. Here's another one, social media. You scroll constantly, seeing other people's highlights, their vacations, their achievements, their perfect moments, and it makes you want more. Feel like you're missing out, like your life isn't enough. That's manufactured desire. You weren't unhappy until you saw what you don't have, but now you are. And you'll stay unhappy as long as you keep comparing yourself to others. Epicurus would say, stop looking at what others have. Stop measuring yourself by external standards. Just ask yourself, am I in pain right now? Am I healthy? Am I safe? Do I have people I care about? Am I free from immediate suffering? If yes, then you have everything that matters. The rest is just noise. Just manufactured wanting that will never end. Now, here's the practical application. Epicurus taught that a calm life requires three things: freedom from physical pain, freedom from mental disturbance, and good friends to share it with. That's it. Those three things. Not wealth, not fame, not success, not achievement, just a healthy body, a calm mind, and people you love. Everything else is extra. Nice if you have it, but not necessary for peace. So ask yourself, are you actually pursuing these things? Or are you pursuing what society says you should pursue? Are you taking care of your health? Are you managing your stress? Are you spending time with people who matter? Or are you sacrificing all of that to chase money, status, approval, and achievements that won't actually make you happy when you get them? Epicurus lived simply. He had a garden where he grew food. He lived with friends. They talked, they ate together. They enjoyed simple pleasures. No luxury, no excess, just peace. And he was happier than emperors. Because emperors have everything and want more. Epicurus had little and wanted nothing. And wanting nothing is freedom. Real freedom, not the freedom to have anything. The freedom from needing anything. Most people will never understand this. They'll keep chasing, keep wanting, keep thinking the next thing will finally satisfy them, and they'll die still wanting, still chasing, still believing peace is just one more achievement away. But you can be different. You can understand what Epicurus taught, that peace doesn't come from getting what you want. It comes from wanting what you have. That happiness isn't in the next upgrade. It's in appreciating what's already here. This isn't giving up. This isn't settling. This is seeing clearly. This is understanding that the game you're playing can't be won, because the rules keep changing. The goalposts keep moving. There's always more to want. But you can step out of that game. You can choose simplicity, appreciation, presence, peace, not because you failed to get more, but because you're wise enough to know that more won't help. Epicurus figured this out 2,300 years ago, and it's still true, still waiting, still offering peace to anyone tired enough of chasing to finally stop and rest. Subscribe for more ancient wisdom that actually calms the chaos.